Just how broken is the Millennium Calendar in Commander? Hi, welcome to EDH Tactician, where I break down Magic the Gathering tactics for Commander and teach you how to level up your decks and win more games. The Millennium Calendar is a card that was released for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It is a 1-mana legendary artifact that says whenever you untap one or more permanents during your untap step, put that many time counters on the Millennium Calendar. You can pay 2 and tap to double the number of counters on the Millennium Calendar. And then when there are 1,000 or more time counters on the Millennium Calendar, sacrifice it and each opponent loses 1,000 life. Now it does look difficult to get up to 1,000 time counters. That would be starting with 1 and doubling it 10 times. You are only going to have so many things to untap during your untap step, and a lot of people are looking at this card and saying, maybe it's a little too slow to win any games, and they're not maybe seeing what I'm seeing about it. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to show you some ways to win pretty quickly with the Millennium Calendar. In fact, I've got 2 turn 1 win combos if you get the right opening hand. Let me show you. I'm going to put Magda Brazen Outlaw into the command zone. And my opening hand is going to have a mountain, a mana crypt, a mana vault, a soul ring, a lotus petal, a universal automaton, and a clock of omens. And let me just run you through how this is going to work. We're going to play out the mountain and tap it for its mana. We're going to play out the mana crypt, tap it for its mana. We're going to play out the mana vault, tap it for its mana. We're going to play out the soul ring, tap it for its mana. And we are going to play out the lotus petal, tap and sacrifice it for its mana. With all that mana, we are going to cast Magda Brazen Outlaw. We are going to cast the Universal Automaton, and we are going to cast the Clock of Omens. Now that these are out, some of you may or may not be familiar with this combo already, but let me show you. What the Clock of Omens here does says to tap 2 of your untapped artifacts, and then you can untap a target artifact. We're going to go ahead and activate that by tapping Clock of Omens and tapping Universal Automaton. The important thing to notice about him, not only is he an artifact, but he is a changeling, so he has every creature type. When that does get tapped, what happens here with Magda? Magda says whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, you create a treasure token. Because this is every creature type, it is a dwarf. So we'll go ahead and create a treasure token. And then we will resolve the effect here that says the untapped 2 artifact creatures you control off the top Clock of Omens. Use that to untap the Universal Automaton. Now what happens with the loop? We can once again tap 2 untapped artifacts we control to untap a target artifact. This time we're going to do the Universal Automaton again and a treasure token. Because we did tap a dwarf, Magda's going to go off and create us an untapped treasure token. And then we're going to go ahead and resolve the Clock of Omens trigger once again to untap the Universal Automaton. We can continue doing this until we have 10 tapped treasures and 1 untapped treasure. And then we are going to use Magda's other ability. It says sacrifice 5 treasures, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that onto your battlefield, then shuffle your library. We're going to go ahead and sacrifice the 10 tapped treasures to fetch out a Gonti's Aether Heart, and of course the Millennium Calendar. Now we have everything we do need to win the game. What happens? Gonti's Aether Heart says whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get 2 energy counters, and you may pay, I believe that's 8 energy counters, to exile Gonti's Aether Heart to take an extra turn after this one. We're going to go ahead and start re-looping the Universal Automaton. Tap that, tap the untapped treasure, create more tapped treasure. Loop that until you have 1,000 tapped treasures. And then you're going to have more than enough energy counters to pay for Gonti's Aether Heart. So you're going to pay all the charge counters, you're going to exile the heart, you're going to take another turn, and then what happens on your upkeep is you're going to untap 1,000 treasure tokens. Untapping 1,000 treasure tokens on the is going to trigger the Millennium Calendar to put 1,000 time counters on it. And when you go to your upkeep step, you will resolve when there are 1,000 or more time counters on the Millennium Calendar, you sacrifice it and each opponent loses 1,000 life. And there you go. You won on turn 1 with the Millennium Calendar. Let me show you another way to do it, because technically that was a turn 2 win. We did have to take an extra turn with Gonti's Aether Heart, so maybe that's not a true turn 1 win, but I can actually get you there on turn 1. Let me show you another combo. So for this combo, I'm going to put Goldberry River Daughter into the command zone. I am also going to put in our opening hand a Swiftfoot Boots, an Ixalan Scepter, Dramatic Reversal, the Trenzalore Clock, a Mana Crypt and Mana Vault, a Lotus Petal, and the Millennium Calendar. And that is opening hand plus card draw, the 8 cards there in hand. Let me show you how this combo is going to work. We're actually going to start by playing out the Mana Crypt, tap it for its mana, play out the Mana Vault, tap it for its mana. We do have 4 colorless mana at this point. We're going to cast out an Ixalan Scepter, and we are going to imprint a Dramatic Reversal onto that. If you've never seen this combo before, Dramatic Reversal says it's an instant for 2 mana. It says untap all non-land permanents you control. When we imprint that onto the Ixalan Scepter, play 2 colorless mana and tap it, and then we may play a copy of Dramatic Reversal without paying its mana cost. So you paid 2 to activate it, and then you get a free cast of whatever you imprinted onto it. What that's going to allow us to do, and we'll go ahead and do it now, is to tap and pay the remaining 2 colorless mana we had floating, to untap all of our non-land permanents. You can see here pretty easily, Mana Vault and Mana Crypt is a total of 5 colorless mana. When you tap both of those, you have more than enough mana to pay for the 2. To tap the Ixalan Scepter, untap your Mana Vault, Mana Crypt, and the Scepter again. You now have access to infinite colorless mana. With that, what we're going to do is cast out the Millennium Calendar. We're going to need that out on the battlefield. We'll cast out a Swiftfoot Boots. And then last things we're going to do, tap and sack the Lotus Petal to play out your Goldberry River Daughter, using the 1 blue mana off of the Lotus Petal and 1 of your infinite colorless mana. And then equip Swiftfoot Boots over to the River Daughter so she has haste. And our land for turn is going to be the Trenzalore Clock. And here's the kicker. Let me just make these all visible for you. The Trenzalore Clock is a new land with the Doctor Who set. It is a legendary land, and it says we can tap it for blue mana, and we put a time counter on the Clocktower. We're going to go ahead and do that here. Now that there's a time counter on the Trenzalore Clocktower, we are going to tap to activate Goldberry River Daughter, and her ability says move a counter of each kind on Goldberry River Daughter from another target permanent you control. We're going to move time counter from the Clocktower to Goldberry, and we'll go ahead and untap her with the Ixalan Scepter Dramatic Reversal. And you'll notice we do have a floating blue mana for tapping the Clocktower. Goldberry says for blue mana and tap, we can move 1 or more counters from Goldberry onto another target permanent you control. And there's where the last bit comes in. We're going to go ahead and activate that. And we're going to move the time counter from Goldberry to the Millennium Calendar. Now that the Millennium Calendar has a time counter on it, and we have infinite untaps and infinite colorless mana, we're going to continue to activate the 2 and tap to double the number of time counters on the Millennium Calendar. So tap it, play your dramatic reversal, untap it, tap it, play your dramatic reversal. Once we do that 10 times, we're going to have 1024 time counters on the Millennium Calendar. It's 2 to the 10 for all of you math nerds. And then right here on our main phase 1, when there are more 1000 or more time counters on the Millennium Calendar, we're going to sacrifice it, and each opponent loses 1000 life. You've probably just won the game. So there's a couple of combos that work to get the Millennium Calendar to win on turn 1. I do think that's an interesting way to look at this card. Now, obviously, you're probably not going to get all those combo pieces right in your opening hand. But I think there are some other interesting ways that we can combo off on the Millennium Calendar to get a quicker win than what you might be thinking. What I wouldn't do if you're going to play the Millennium Calendar, I wouldn't play it early, start putting a small amount of time counters on it, maybe doubling it when you have the extra mana open. Once you start to get up there, once you start to get a couple hundred counters on this, you've got 3 opponents who are going to be staring it down, and they're going to be saying, hey, look, that's going to become a problem soon. And artifacts are easy to remove. There's lots of artifact removal out there. A lot of Commander players are going to be running artifact removal. And there's nothing on the Millennium Calendar. There's no indestructible. There's no ward. There's no hexproof. So unless you're giving your artifacts some of those protections, this is going to be a hard way to win if opponents see it coming. And so what I would say is don't let them see it coming. I think there's an interesting way to do this. If you run a combo like Kodama of the East Tree. Kodama of the East Tree, you've probably seen combos of this in the past where you can play the Kodama and then you play a landfall card that creates a token. And I'm going to give you an example here that I think is pretty slick with the Nesting Dragon. The Nesting Dragon does say, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/2 Dragon Egg creature token with the Defender, and when this creature dies, create a 2/2 Red Dragon creature token with Flying, and red, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. The way that this combo works is if you have a bounce land in your hand, and for example the Gruul Turf. A bounce land, if you're not familiar, when you play it out of your hand, you do have to return a land you control to your hand, and then when you tap it you get double mana, and it does come into the battlefield tapped. The way that you combo off with Kodama and a creature with this landfall is to go ahead and play your bounce land, play the Gruul Turf out, and then you want to stack your triggers. Start by returning the Gruul Turf to your hand, and then do your landfall trigger. After that, in this case, we're going to create that Dragon Egg. And then because the bounce land is back in your hand, we're going to play out the same land. Eyes editing me from the future. I should probably explain the reason that you're able to get the land back out of your hand and onto the battlefield is the ability that Kodama of the East Tree has. That's why we have it up for the combo. It says, whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. When we do the landfall and we create the token, it's a 0 mana value permanent entering the battlefield. It does allow us to put a 0 mana value permanent out of our hand onto the battlefield, which in this case is going to be the bounce land, and then comes back into the hand, makes another token. Kodama sees that token, you're able to put the land back out. So just rewatching my footage and notice I explain how that combo goes off, so back to it. And then we're going to bounce it back to our hand. We're going to create another Dragon Egg. Have the Millennium Calendar out on the battlefield at this point. Create 1000 Dragon Eggs. What I like about doing this with the dragon eggs, and there are other ways to combo off with Kodama, Scoot Swarm is a very popular one, but what I like about dragon eggs is that they do have somewhat of a board wipe protection. If your opponents are going to do something that causes like massive damage to all creatures, if they're going to do something that destroy all creatures, your 1,000 dragon eggs are going to turn into 1,000 2/2 flying dragons, and you're probably going to win the game with 1,000 2/2 flying dragons. So if they do want to try to remove this combo, they have to have something that's going to say bounce tokens back into your hand or exile creatures. So once you have these out, the last part of the combo here to be familiar with is putting an artifact vehicle out onto the battlefield. Vehicles are really nice because they're allowing you to tap creatures to get them into a tap state, and you can do that on the turn that they come out because it is the vehicle's ability that's tapping it, not the creature's ability. I like the clown car as a vehicle. The clown car, you can pay for 0 mana. You just don't get to roll any dice when it enters the battlefield. What's nice then about having a vehicle out is on the end step right before your turn, you can go ahead and crew a clown car or your vehicle by just tapping all 1,000 of your eggs, and then like your nesting dragon or something that's going to have the 5 power to actually meet the crew cost. You're allowed to overpay with crew cost. You're allowed to tap as many creatures as you want to tap while you're crewing, so it doesn't matter that these are 0/2s, that they're not actually adding to that crew value. You are still allowed to tap them. Then of course it's going to become your turn. You're going to get an untap step. You're going to untap 1,000 dragon eggs as well as your nesting dragon or whatever else you use to crew. And then once again, from 0 to 1,000 on the Millennium Calendar. So I think that's going to be an interesting card. I am definitely trying to build a deck that uses a few of these sorts of combo ideas to get the Millennium Calendar out. I do think another interesting way to play this would be if you do have something that's going to let you flash out cards. You might have this 1,000 dragon eggs out, and your opponents might be thinking, well, what is he going to do with 1,000 dragon eggs? And then right before your turn, you flash out the clown car, you flash out the calendar, and then get the surprise victory. So I am interested in your thoughts. Did I open your eyes to some of the Millennium Calendar's possibilities? Will you be running it in your next deck? Please let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please feel free to like it. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.